Alien girl scavenged on the ground. But a human's restaurant invitation transformed everything. The neon lights of New Singapore's undercity illuminated the rain-slick streets in a spectrum of vibrant colors. John Kerr adjusted his combat suit's environmental controls, the green status indicators pulsing steadily across the dark titanium plating. The scent of wet concrete and various alien cuisines wafted through his helmet's filters as he navigated the bustling streets of the immigrant district. "Sir, your presence is requested at the Colonial Defense Force headquarters in 2 hours. His suit's I reminded him. "Noted," he muttered, more focused on the unusual sight before him. In a dimly lit alley, huddled against a grimy wall, sat a female foodie Callan, one of the newer species to join the Galactic Commonwealth. Her blue skin was barely covered by tattered clothing that might have once been stylish, and her bald head glistened with raindrops. What caught his attention wasn't her evident state of despair. The Undercity had plenty of that. But rather the way she was desperately scraping the remnants of a discarded food container from the ground. John had seen much during his tours with the CDF, but something about this scene resonated with him. Maybe it was the way other aliens pointedly avoided looking at her, or perhaps it was the quiet dignity she maintained even in such circumstances. "Here," he said, pulling a synth cola from his suit's storage compartment. "Catch the can." It arced through the air. Her hand shot up with surprising grace, snatching it mid-flight. She examined the container with an almost feral intensity before figuring out the tab mechanism. The sound of pressurized gas escaping was followed by desperate gulps. "Easy there," John chuckled, approaching her slowly. "There's plenty more where that came from." The foodie Callan lowered the empty can, her large, iridescent eyes regarding him with a mix of weariness and hope. "Why?" Her voice was melodic, despite the rough undertones of someone unaccustomed to speaking. John shrugged, the servos in his suit whirring softly. "Because I can. I'm John, by the way, and you are." "DTIA," she replied, still clutching the empty can like it was a treasure. "Just DTIA?" "Well, just DTIA," John said, pulling out a chocolate bar. "How about something with actual calories?" He unwrapped it and held it out. She snatched it quickly. But instead of eating it immediately, she studied the brown rectangle with fascination. "What is it?" "Earth chocolate. Try it." Her first bite was tentative. The second was not. John watched with amusement as her eyes widened in delight. But his smile faded when she hunched over the food, eating it directly off the dirty ground where some pieces had fallen. "Whoa. Hold up," he said, kneeling beside her. "You don't have to eat off the ground. That's not right." DTIA paused, chocolate smeared across her lips. "It is what I know, what I have always known." Her voice carried no self-pity, just a statement of fact. "Always." John frowned. "How long have you been here?" 3 Earth years since the evacuation of Foodie Cala Prime." She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "No one will hire a refugee without credentials. Especially not one who," she gestured to herself, "who lives like this." John stood, his suit's targeting system automatically highlighting potential threats in the growing evening crowd. Most were just curious onlookers, though a few showed signs of hostile intent. He ignored them all. "Come with me," he said, extending his hand. "Let's get you some real food." DTIA stared at his offered hand like it might bite her. "Why would you help me?" "Because I can. Because it's right. And because no sentient being should have to eat off the ground." He grinned. "Besides, I know this great burger joint around the corner. Best fusion cuisine in the Undercity. They do these amazing spice blend fries that will knock your socks off." He paused. "Well, if you wore socks," a small smile tugged at her lips. "You are strange for a human." "I'll take that as a compliment." After a moment's hesitation, she took his hand. The walk to Big Al's intergalactic grill was short, but eventful. Other pedestrians gave them a wide berth, some muttering disapproving comments about her kind. John noticed how DTIA seemed to shrink into herself with each passing remark. The restaurant itself was a clash of Earth retro and alien aesthetics, chrome fixtures alongside bioluminescent decorations. As they entered, the Martian host's 4 eyes widened. An alarm. "Sir, I must protest," he began. "Save it," John cut him off, his voice carrying the unmistakable tone of command. Two for dinner, private booth, and if anyone has a problem with my guest, they can take it up with me. He patted the pulse pistol at his hip meaningfully. The host swallowed nervously and led them to a corner booth. You didn't have to do that, DTIA whispered as they sat down. Yeah, I did. John removed his helmet, revealing his rugged features and neatly trimmed beard. Now let's see about introducing you to the wonder that is a proper cheeseburger. The soft glow of holographic candles cast intimate shadows across their booth at Big Al's as John watched DTIA delicately explore her first proper Earth burger. Her initial hesitation had given way to careful, measured bites, a far cry from her desperate eating earlier. This is extraordinary, she said, dabbing her lips with a napkin, a gesture he demonstrated moments before. The textures, the flavors, they dance together like a harmonic resonance. John raised an eyebrow. Interesting way to describe a burger. Most people just say yum. On Foodie Cala Prime, before the evacuation, I was a resonance curator at the Grand Archive of Cultural Harmonics. Her eyes took on a distant look. We preserved our people's artistic heritage through synchronized sensory experiences. Taste, sound, color, and emotion, all woven together. That sounds fascinating, John said, genuinely intrigued. How does it work? Drantia's face lit up with passion. May I demonstrate? At his nod, she reached for the spice blend fries. Close your eyes, John complied, feeling slightly foolish but curious. Now listen to my voice. Let it be the baseline melody. Her melodious tones took on a rhythmic quality. The crunch of the fry is like the percussion section in a grand orchestra. The initial salt hit is the brass, bold, commanding attention. Then the spices bloom across your tongue like woodwinds joining the symphony, each one adding its own voice to the harmony. John found himself swept up in her description, experiencing the simple fry in an entirely new way. When he opened his eyes, he found DTIA watching him intently, a spark of her former dignity shining through. That was incredible, he admitted. You made fast food into fine art. She blushed, her blue skin darkening to a deeper azure. It is nothing compared to the true harmonics we once created. But thank you for understanding. Most species find our cultural practices strange. They're lost, John said firmly. I'd love to hear more about your work. Over the next hour, their conversation flowed freely. DTIA described the intricate sensory tapestries her people had woven, symphonies of taste and sound that told stories of their history. John shared tales of Earth's various art forms, from classical music to interactive VR installations. It's amazing how similar our peoples are in some ways, DTIA mused, both seeking to capture and share experiences through art, though I have to admit, we humans never thought to make our museum exhibits edible. John chuckled. Perhaps you should, she teased, growing more confident. Imagine experiencing the Renaissance through taste as well as sight. The Mona Lisa as a soup course? Why not? Her mysterious smile might translate well to a subtle blend of flavors, he said. Their laughter drew disapproving glances from other patrons, but neither cared. John found himself captivated by the transformation before him as DTIA spoke about her passion. Her entire demeanor changed. Her shoulders straightened, her gestures became more elegant, and her voice took on a musical quality that made his skin tingle. You know, he said during a lull in the conversation, there's a new interactive art installation opening at the Orbital Gallery next week. Would you like to go? Drasidia's expression fell. I cannot. Look at me, she gestured to her ragged appearance. I would not be allowed in. John leaned forward, his voice soft but firm. That's easily fixed. Tomorrow's my day off. How about we do something about your situation? New clothes, a place to stay, whatever you need to get back on your feet. Why would you do this for me? The question held no suspicion now, only wonder. Because I see you, DTIA, not the refugee eating off the ground, but the brilliant curator who can turn a fry into a symphony. You deserve better than this. Their eyes met across the table, and something electric passed between them. Drantia's hand trembled slightly as she reached across to touch his fingers. Your kindness. It resonates at a frequency I have never encountered before. Humans truly are remarkable creatures, John replied with a warm smile. Speaking of which, he signaled the waiter. How about dessert? Wait to Gui. Wait until you try their chocolate lava cake. If a French fry can be an orchestra, this might blow your mind. Thursday. As they shared the decadent dessert, their conversation grew more personal. John spoke of his childhood in Singapore's towering arcologies, his decision to join the CDF, and his love of classical earth jazz. DTIA shared stories of her family's traditional role as cultural preservers, her studies of other species' art forms, and her dreams of someday restoring her people's lost heritage. Most of our archives were destroyed in the evacuation, she said softly. 3,000 years of cultural harmonics, reduced to ashes and scattered memories, but not lost entirely, John pointed out. They live in you, in your knowledge, your abilities. Perhaps, she paused, considering, would you like to experience a true harmonic resonance? It is quite intimate by human standards, but I'd be honored, John said sincerely. DTIA stood and moved to his side of the booth. Close your eyes again, she whispered, her breath warm against his ear. She began to hum a complex melody that seemed to vibrate through his very bones. Her fingers traced delicate patterns on his palm, each touch corresponding to a note in her song. The sensation was unlike anything John had ever experienced. Colors seemed to bloom behind his closed eyelids. Tastes and scents wove through the melody, and emotions that weren't entirely his own flowed through him. Wonder, gratitude, attraction, hope. When the resonance faded, he opened his eyes to find DTIA watching him, with a mixture of anticipation and vulnerability that was. Words failed him. Too much? She asked anxiously. Beautiful, he finished, like nothing I have ever experienced. Their faces were close now, very close. The air between them seemed charged with possibility. The morning sun cast prismatic reflections through the crystalline towers of New Singapore's shopping district as John guided DTIA through its bustling walkways. After their memorable dinner, he had arranged temporary accommodations for her at a CDF-approved refugee shelter. Now freshly showered but still in her tattered clothes, she walked beside him with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. First stop, John announced, gesturing to an upscale boutique called Stellar Styles. Time to help you look as elegant on the outside as you are on the inside. The shop's Venusian proprietor, Madame Iris, initially wrinkled her bioluminescent nose at Dratia's appearance, but changed her tune when John flashed his platinum CDF credit chip. Of course, darling. Let's work some magic. What followed was a whirlwind of fabric, color, and transformation. DTIA emerged from the dressing room in a flowing azure dress that complemented her skin tone perfectly. Its subtle, iridescent patterns shifted with each movement. The dress resonates with my natural harmonics, DTIA whispered, twirling before a holographic mirror. How did you know? I didn't, John admitted, momentarily stunned by her beauty. But Madame Iris apparently did. The Venusian, he added. Darling, fashion is its own kind of art. Now, about your head, John interjected. I have an idea about that. He pulled up his comlink, quickly arranging their next stop. An hour later, they entered Binary Beats, New Singapore's premier music and art supply store. The human owner, a jazz enthusiast named Rai, greeted John like an old friend. So you want to combine Foodie Callan harmonic resonance with earth jazz? Rai scratched his grizzled beard. Ambitious, but I think I have just the equipment you need. They left the store with an array of instruments and devices, a Neuralink synthesizer, harmonic resonance crystals, and a modified holographic projection system. Diet. John had also picked up his old saxophone from Rai's storage. Your dwelling is unexpected, DTIA commented as they entered John's apartment in the upper levels of the arcology. Space. The space was a curious blend of military precision and artistic chaos, with jazz posters alongside holographic star charts. Home sweet home, John said, setting up their new equipment. I figured we could start here, create something new together. DTIA touched the synthesizer reverently. You truly wish to blend our art form? Why not? Your harmonic resonance showed me possibilities I never imagined. Maybe we can create something that helps others understand too. They spent the afternoon experimenting. Drittia's harmonic abilities combined with the synthesizer created ethereal soundscapes that John complemented with improvised saxophone riffs. The holographic system translated their music into swirling patterns of light and color. "Watch this," DTIA said, adjusting the resonance crystals. The next note she produced wasn't just heard, it was felt, tasted, experienced. John's saxophone response seemed to weave through the sensation, creating something entirely new. "That's incredible," John exclaimed. "It's like jazz you can touch. Harmonic resonance you can dance to," DTIA countered, swaying to their combined rhythm. As the day progressed, their artistic collaboration took on an increasingly intimate quality. Each successful fusion of their style brought them physically closer, their movements becoming a dance of creation and discovery. "Your species continues to amaze me," DTIA said during a break. "Most races we encountered viewed our art as primitive, our resonance as mere parlor tricks. But you seek to understand, to blend, to create something new." "That's humanity for you," John grinned. "We see beauty, and we want to dance with it, not dissect it." Their eyes met, and the air crackled with unspoken possibility. DTIA stepped closer, her newly clothed form radiating confidence. "Perhaps we could attempt a more personal harmony." John's heart raced as she initiated a resonance different from the one at the restaurant. This one spoke of desire, of connection, of two different melodies seeking to become one song. Their first kiss tasted like stardust and jazz, a perfect fusion of human passion and alien artistry. The harmonic crystals around them hummed in sympathy, creating a light show that painted their embrace in cosmic colors. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, the holographic system had captured their moment of connection, translating it into a swirling masterpiece of light, sound, and sensation. "Now that," John said softly, "is what I call art." DTIA laughed, the sound like wind chimes in a summer breeze. "Indeed, though I believe we've only composed the first movement of this particular piece." They spent the rest of the evening refining their fusion of jazz and harmonics, each successful blend bringing them closer together. Their artistic collaboration became a metaphor for their growing relationship. Two different worlds finding beautiful ways to coexist and create something new. "You know," John said as they reviewed their day's work, "there's an underground art collective that hosts weekly performances. With your permission, I'd like to show them what we've created." DTIA hesitated. "You truly believe others would appreciate this blend of our cultures? I think they'll be blown away. Plus," he added with a mischievous grin, "it might help fund more equipment and maybe a place of your own if you want it." "My own place?" Ristia's expression turned thoughtful. "I haven't had a home since Fudikala Prime." The idea seemed almost foreign now. John took her hand, marveling at how natural it felt. "You don't have to decide anything now, but I want you to know you have options. You're not alone anymore." The underground art collective's performance space, the Nebula, pulsed with anticipation. What had started as a simple showcase of John and Dredia's artistic fusion 2 weeks ago had exploded into something far bigger than either of them had anticipated. Tonight, the crowd included not just the usual eclectic mix of artists and enthusiasts, but also several well-dressed corporate representatives. Among them sat Thomas Sterling, CEO of Stellar Entertainment, the largest media conglomerate in the solar system. "Are you nervous?" John asked, adjusting his neural interface backstitch while DTIA calibrated her resonance crystals. She wore a stunning holographic dress that shifted between deep blues and purples, making her skin appear to shimmer like a cosmic aurora. "Surprisingly, no." Dredia's fingers danced across the crystal array. "When I was a curator, I performed for thousands, though never quite like this. You never had me as your jazz accompaniment before." John winked, drawing a melodious laugh from her. Their performance began traditionally enough. John on saxophone, DTIA, conducting harmonic resonance. But then came the innovation that had caught everyone's attention, the sensory synthesis. Through their combined technologies, the audience didn't just hear the music, they experienced it. Taste, touch, emotion, all woven together in a tapestry of sensation. John's jazz riffs became colors you could taste, while Dretia's harmonics transformed into visible waves of pleasure that rippled through the crowd. As they played, John couldn't help but marvel at how far they'd come from that first meeting in the Undercity. DTIA moved with grace and confidence now, her movements precise and seductive as she conducted the harmonic flow. The woman who once ate from the ground now demanded a symphony of senses that left audiences breathless. The performance peaked with her signature piece, a fusion of earth blues and foodie Catalan mating harmonics that had the crowd swaying in shared ecstasy. The holographic systems transformed their music into a swirling nebula of light and sensation that enveloped the entire space. When the final note faded, the silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before the audience erupted in thunderous applause.
"Magnificent!"
Thomas Sterling's voice boomed as he approached them afterward, his cybernetic eyes glowing with excitement.
"Simply magnificent.
The potential applications are staggering. Entertainment, therapy, education. We're not interested in commercializing the spiritual aspects of harmonic resonance," DTIA stated firmly, her hand finding John's. "Different." Sterling's smile didn't waver.
Of course. But surely we can find some middle ground. The galaxy needs this kind of innovation. Think of the cultural bridges we could build."
"Perhaps," John interjected, "we could discuss this over dinner somewhere more private?" Sterling's eyes lit up.
"Excellent! My private restaurant on the 200th floor of Sterling Tower. Tomorrow night."
After the CEO departed, DTIA returned to John with a knowing smile. "The 200th floor? Quite a step up from Big Al's." "Hey, Big Al's will always be our special place." John pulled her close. "But I figured you might enjoy dining somewhere that doesn't serve food in paper bags." "The food matters less than the company," she whispered, initiating a harmonic resonance that made John's skin tingle with pleasure. "Though I must admit, I never imagined when you found me that I'd be dining in the clouds."
Speaking of which, John reached into his pocket and pulled out a small key card.
"I have something for you. That apartment we looked at last week? It's yours."
Drantia's eyes widened.
"John, no. The deposit alone must have cost." "Worth every credit," he interrupted. "You need your own space, your own place to create. Though," he added with a suggestive grin, "I hope you'll still find time to practice at my place." Their kiss was interrupted by Rai, who burst backstage with news feeds displayed on his comlink. "You two need to see this. The performance is trending across 3 systems. And look, the Foodie Catalan Cultural Preservation Society has issued a statement praising the innovative adaptation of traditional harmonics." The next day found them preparing for dinner in Drantia's new apartment. The space was modest but elegant, with large windows offering a spectacular view of the city. John watched as DTIA adjusted her new evening dress, a creation that combined earth fashion with Foodie Catalan's sensory fabric.
"No, you're staring,"
she noted without turning around.
"Can't help it," he admitted. "Sometimes I still can't believe how much has changed in just a few weeks." She turned to face him, her expression serious. "Does it frighten you how quickly this is all moving now?" "No," he answered honestly. "It excites me. You excite me.
Everything about this. Us, our art, our future. It feels right." The dinner with Sterling proved both productive and surprising. The CEO had done his homework, presenting a business plan that respected Foodie Catalan cultural traditions while exploring commercial applications of their fusion art form. "Think of it," Sterling enthused over dessert. "Therapeutic centers using harmonic resonance to treat PTSD, entertainment venues offering fully immersive experiences, cultural exchange programs." "And our creative control?" DTIA asked. "Absolute. We'll provide the resources, distribution, and technical support. You two remain the artists." As they discussed terms, John noticed something remarkable. Sterling addressed them as equals, showing none of the prejudice they'd encountered elsewhere. In fact, he seemed fascinated by Drantia's cultural knowledge.
"Your people's understanding of sensory integration is decades ahead of our best research," he admitted.
"Combined with human innovation, the possibilities are endless." Quote. Later that night, celebrating in Drantia's apartment, they could hardly believe their luck. "A galaxy-wide platform for our art," DTIA exclaimed, curled against John on her balcony. "And to think, none of this would have happened if you hadn't offered me that soda."
"Best decision I ever made," John kissed her temple.
Though I have to ask, why did you trust me that night? You must have had others offer help before.
DTIA was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest that sent pleasant harmonic vibrations through his body. Because you saw me, she finally said. Not what I appeared to be, but who I was, who I could be again. Humans have this remarkable ability to see potential where others see only problems. 6 months into their partnership with Stellar Entertainment, John and Dredia's fusion art had revolutionized the entertainment industry. Their therapeutic harmonic centers were helping thousands, and their performances sold out across the solar system. But tonight, in the quiet of Big Al's intergalactic grill, they celebrated something more personal. I can't believe they kept our booth, DTIA said, running her hand along the worn synthetic leather. She wore an elegant designer dress now, but her eyes held the same wonder as that first night. Al says it's good for business, John grinned.
The booth where it all began? They've even got a little plaque.
Indeed, a small holographic marker flickered above their table, where human jazz met foodie Kale in harmony. Speaking of beginnings, John reached into his pocket. I have something for you. The small box he placed on the table contained not a ring. Human customs didn't translate well to foodie Kalen traditions, but a specially crafted resonance crystal cut to harmonize with both their biological frequencies. John didn't hear a breath lifting the crystal. It hummed in response to her touch, creating a soft melody that made John's heart race. This is a bonding crystal. This case. I had it made by artisans on New Foodie Kala, he explained. They said it's traditionally used in commitment ceremonies. But how did you know? These are incredibly rare since the evacuation. I have my sources, he winked. Plus, being the galaxy's hottest entertainment duo has its perks. DTIA activated the crystal, letting its harmony flow between them. The sensation was intimate, deeper than their usual resonance sharing. John felt her emotions as if they were his own. Joy, love, anticipation, and something else. There's something I need to tell you too, DTIA said softly, her hand drifting to her abdomen. I've been feeling a new harmony growing within me, a blend of our frequencies. John's eyes widened as understanding dawned. You mean? Yes, her smile was radiant. Though I must warn you, foodie cattle and human pregnancies are uncommon. The harmonics can be quite intense. John laughed, joy bubbling up inside him. Intense is what we do best, remember? Their celebration was interrupted by Al himself. The burly restaurant owner approached with a bottle of non-alcoholic champagne. On the house, he announced proudly. From my favorite power couple. As they shared the drink, John and DTIA discussed their future, the challenges of raising a hybrid child, the blending of their cultural traditions, the modifications they need to make to their performances. Sterling will have a fit when he learns his star performers need maternity leave. John chuckled. Actually, Dredia's eyes sparkled mischievously, I've been experimenting with pregnancy harmonics. They create the most fascinating resonance patterns. Could be a whole new genre. Later that night, in their newly purchased penthouse apartment, success had its perks. Kalen Armits. They lay together on their observation deck, watching the city lights below. DTIA conducted gentle harmonies that let John feel the tiny life growing inside her, a swirling melody of human determination and foodie Catalan grace. I never imagined this, DTIA mused, guiding John's hand to feel a particularly strong harmonic pulse. When you found me in that alley, I accepted that my life would be less, that I'd never create art again, never have a family. And now, look at you, John Kerr Temple, famous artist, soon-to-be mother, and still the most beautiful being I've ever seen eating a burger. She swatted him playfully, but her expression turned thoughtful. I've been thinking about the others, refugees like I was. Perhaps we could use some of our success to help them? Already working on it, John revealed. Sterling's board approved our proposal for a cultural rehabilitation program. Art therapy, job training, the works. You're a wonderful man. DTIA initiated a harmony that made John's entire body tingle with pleasure. Always thinking ahead. Well, someone has to, he teased. You artists are too busy feeling the cosmic vibrations. Their laughter was interrupted by a call from Sterling himself. The CEO's holographic form materialized, looking excited. Sorry to interrupt your evening, but you need to see this. The Galactic Cultural Council just nominated your harmonic fusion for the Preservation Award. You're the first human-alien collaboration ever considered. After ending the call, they sat in stunned silence. From eating off the ground to winning cultural awards, DTIA shook her head in amazement. Humans truly are remarkable creatures. Hey, I just bought you dinner, John protested. You did all the hard work. No! She touched his face tenderly. You did something far more important. You saw possibility where others saw poverty. You offered dignity where others showed disgust. That's what makes humans special. You don't just dream of better things, you make them happen. The baby chose that moment to create a particularly strong harmonic pulse, making them both laugh. Speaking of making things happen, John said, we should probably start thinking about names. In Fudicalan culture, we wait to name children until we've heard their personal harmony, DTIA explained. Each being has their own unique frequency, and in human culture, we argue about family names for months before settling on something we'll probably just shorten to a nickname anyway. Perhaps, DTIA suggested, creating a playful harmony between them. We could compose something new like we always do. The orbital gardens of New Singapore floated serenely above the city, their crystalline domes refracting starlight into prismatic patterns. Originally designed for agricultural research, today they hosted the most anticipated cultural event of the decade, the first official human foodie Catalan bonding ceremony. John stood beneath an arch of resonating crystals, their harmonics creating visible waves of color that matched his formal CDF dress uniform. The green indicators of his ceremonial armor pulsed in sync with the crystals, a modification DTIA had insisted on for aesthetic harmony. Nervous? He asked, adjusting his own formal wear as John's best man. The old jazz musician had spent weeks learning Fudicalan ceremonial tones. Not nervous, John replied, watching guests file in. Just amazed. A year ago, I was just another CDF officer who happened to like jazz. Now look at this. The guest list read like a who's who of galactic society. Sterling sat in the front row, alongside representatives from the Galactic Cultural Council. Even more significantly, the Fudicalan High Harmonist had traveled from New Fudicala to officiate, the first time she performed a mixed-species ceremony. The traditional wedding march was replaced by a stunning fusion piece composed by Rai, combining Earth classical music with Fudicalan harmonics. As it began, the garden's bioluminescent flowers responded to the frequency, creating waves of light that rippled through the audience. Then DTIA appeared, and John forgot how to breathe. Her gown was a masterpiece of bioengineering and artistic design, its living fabric responding to her emotional harmonics. Patterns of light danced across the surface, telling their story, from their first meeting in that dark alley to this moment. Her growing baby bump was accentuated rather than hidden, celebrated as part of their harmony. By the stars, Rai whispered. She's conducting the flowers. Indeed, each step DTIA took caused the garden's flora to pulse in harmony with her dress. The effect was mesmerizing, but John couldn't take his eyes off her face. Her expression held the same wonder he'd seen when she'd first tasted that chocolate bar, but now transformed into something more profound. Joy mixed with absolute certainty. The High Harmonist began the ceremony, her voice creating visible patterns in the air. We gather today to witness the binding of frequencies, the joining of harmonies that should never have met yet, created something more beautiful through their unlikely convergence. The bonding ritual combined elements of both cultures. They exchanged traditional human vows while holding their bonding crystal between them, its harmonics translating their words into pure emotional resonance that washed over the audience. From this day forward, John promised, feeling boundless joy through the crystal. My rhythm follows yours, and my harmony embraces yours. DTIA responded, her voice creating patterns that made the flowers dance. When they kissed, the bonding crystal reached its peak resonance, creating a display of light and sensation that drew gasps from the audience. Every flower in the garden bloomed simultaneously, and even the non-Fudicalan present felt the wave of pure joy that radiated from the couple. The reception that followed was equally groundbreaking. Traditional human dancing alternated with Futuristic harmonic meditation. The cake, designed by Big Al himself, incorporated flavor harmonics that changed based on each guest's species-specific tastes. "You've started quite a trend," Sterling commented, watching various couples attempt to combine earth dances with harmonic movements. "We have received inquiries from 17 different species about fusion ceremonies." Speaking of fusion, the High Harmonist approached, her formal robes shimmering with contained harmonics. "I've never encountered a hybrid pregnancy with such strong resonance patterns. Your child's harmony is unique." DTIA beamed, one hand on her bump. "We can feel it growing stronger each day. Sometimes the baby conducts its own little symphonies. A prodigy in the making." John grinned, pulling DTIA close. "Takes after its mother and its father's tendency to break with tradition." DTIA teased. "The harmonics suggest it might have human vocal cords and Futuristic resonance abilities. A true bridge between our peoples." Later, during a quiet moment in the garden's meditation grove, they swayed together to distant music while their bonding crystal hummed contentedly between them. "Remember our first dance?" John asked. "In my apartment when we were experimenting with jazz harmonics? You kept stepping on my resonance patterns." DTIA laughed. "And I couldn't understand why humans move their bodies so unnecessarily. Now look at us." He gestured to where humans and Futuristic attempted to teach each other their respective dance styles. "Cultural ambassadors! More than that." DTIA guided his hand to feel a particularly strong harmonic pulse from their baby. "We're pioneers. Our child will be living proof that harmony can exist between any peoples if they're brave enough to try." The baby kicked, creating a cascade of harmonic ripples that made nearby flowers bloom. "Strong little conductor," John marveled. Already making their mark on the world, just like their father." DTIA initiated a private harmony between them, one that spoke of desire and absolute trust. "Who saw a hungry girl eating off the ground and offered not just food but dignity, hope, love?" "You're going to make me cry in front of all these important people," John warned, though his eyes were indeed suspiciously bright. "Let them see." Dratia's voice carried the smile of absolute contentment. "Let the whole galaxy see what happens when someone dares to look past appearances and offer kindness. When two different melodies find their perfect harmony." The garden's flowers pulsed in agreement, their bioluminescence creating a private light show around the couple as they shared another kiss, their bonding crystals singing with joy between them. The birthing chamber in New Singapore's Xenical Medical Center hummed with a symphony of harmonics. DTIA floated in a suspension field, her body radiating waves of blue light that pulsed in time with her contractions. John stood beside her, their bonding crystal creating a bridge of shared sensation between them. "The baby's harmonics are off the charts," Dr. Patterson announced, monitoring holographic displays that showed both standard medical readings and harmonic patterns. "We've never seen anything quite like this." "That's our little conductor." John squeezed Dratia's hand, wincing as another contraction rippled through their shared connection. His career. "Always putting on a show," DTIA managed to laugh. That turned into a gasp, as the strongest harmonic pulse yet emanated from her body. The medical equipment responded with a cascade of chimes and beeps, while the specialized resonance crystals throughout the room began to glow. "Here we go!" Dr. Patterson's voice carried professional excitement. "The harmonic convergence is beginning!" What followed was unlike any birth either species had witnessed before. As their child entered the world, it conducted its own arrival symphony, a perfect fusion of human rhythms and Futuristic harmonics that filled the room with swirling patterns of light and sound. "It's a boy," Dak Nashak Patterson announced, then added with wonder, "and he's singing." Indeed. The infant's first cry came out as a pure harmonic note that made every crystal in the room resonate. His skin was a lighter blue than Dratia's, with subtle patterns that shifted like sunlight through water. Most remarkably, he had a full head of hair, midnight black, with natural bioluminescent highlights that pulsed with his emotions. "He's perfect!" DTIA whispered as their son was placed in her arms. "Look, John, he has your eyes." Baby's eyes were indeed human-like in structure, but held the iridescent quality of his mother's people. As he blinked up at his parents,
The lights in the room dimmed and brightened in response to his emotional harmonics. "Well, that's new." Dr. Patterson made notes rapidly. "It show. It seems he can affect electronic systems with his harmonics. Fascinating." 3 days later, they brought their son home to their penthouse apartment, now modified with special crystals, to help him learn to control his unique abilities. They named him Alexander Rare Harmony, though his Foodie Catalan frequency name was a complex harmonic pattern that made humans' teeth tingle pleasantly when pronounced correctly. "I still can't believe how far we've come," DTIA mused as they sat in their favorite spot on the observation deck, watching the sunset while Alexander conducted tiny light shows with his emotions. "From that alley to this. Speaking of which," John grinned, producing a familiar can of synth cola, "I thought we could celebrate properly." DTIA laughed, accepting the drink. "You're never going to let me forget that, are you?" "Are you kidding? It's the best pickup line in history. Hey, want some soda? It comes with a side of lifelong happiness and revolutionary cultural fusion." Their moment was interrupted by a holographic call from Sterling. The CEO's excitement was palpable even through the projection. "Have you seen the numbers? The live stream of Alexander's birth harmony has been viewed by over 2 billion sentients. Every major medical institution wants to study the implications for cross-species genetics, and don't get me started on the entertainment possibilities." "Thomas!" John cut in firmly. "We agreed. No exploitation." Of course. But consider this. A children's program about learning to embrace cultural differences, featuring animated stories based on your journey. Alexander could be an inspiration to mixed species families everywhere." After ending the call, they sat in contemplative silence, broken only by their son's occasional harmonic burbles. "He has a point," DTIA said finally, "and our story could help others. Show them that differences can create something beautiful, like a hungry girl and a lonely soldier creating a whole new form of art," John teased. "Like a human seeing past prejudice to offer dignity and love," DTIA corrected, initiating a harmony that made Alexander coo with delight. "Our son will never know what it's like to eat off the ground, to feel less than worthy, because of us. He'll grow up knowing only harmony, because of us," John amended, pulling his family close as the last rays of sunset painted the sky in colors that seemed to dance to their shared harmony. "We composed this symphony together." Alexander chose that moment to create a particularly spectacular light show, his hair gleaming with patterns that matched the sunset, while nearby crystals hummed in perfect resonance. "Though, I think our little maestro here might end up composing something even greater." DTIA laughed as their son reached for the bonding crystal, causing it to emit a perfect C major chord. "The galaxy won't know what hit it," John agreed proudly. "A human's determination, a Foodie Callan's grace and harmony, all his own." As night fell over New Singapore, the Kerr Harmony family created their own private symphony, 3 distinct melodies weaving together into something new and wonderful. From the streets below, pedestrians paused to admire the light show emanating from the penthouse, some swearing they could hear impossible music in the air. In the end, it was Alexander who had the last word, creating a harmony that made his parents' bonding crystal sing with joy. The notes seemed to carry a promise of bridges yet to be built, songs yet to be sung, and harmonies waiting to be discovered, all because one night a human soldier offered a can of soda to a hungry alien and changed both their worlds forever.